And I know we have some guests here for that. So if our guests would please come up. I'll have you introduce yourselves after I read this proclamation. I know Aaron has a microphone for us. This is a proclamation celebrating National Community Planning Month, October 2014. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, and rural areas, and whereas community planning and plans help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live, and whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to meaningfully be involved in making choices that determine their future, the future of their community, and whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation, and whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories, and whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorse National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of life of our settlements and environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of the planning commissions and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Hagerstown. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional community planners of the city of Hagerstown and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, I, David Geisberts, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, with support of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2014 as Community Planning Month in the City of Hagerstown in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month. So congratulations, Alex Rohrball, Comprehensive Planner, right? Ms. Calhoun is our Administrative Assistant in the Planning Department. Kathy Marr, our Distinguished Planning Director. Judy Wheeler, Planning Commission Member. Doug Wright, Planning Commission Chairman. Ron Thomas, also member of the Planning Commission, and Councilmember Brubaker serves as our ex officio member on the Planning Commission. So thank you all for being here. Would you like to accept the proclamation? There you go. And would any of you like to say a few words about the Planning Commission, serving the old commission I used to serve on?
I've got a quick one.
Sure.
Jill told me I have to do this. The only thing I want to say is, as chairman of the Citizen Planning Board, we have a slot open. So anybody watching this presentation, and if you're interested, it's very interesting work and a great way to serve your community. And you need to call the mayor's office and see if we can get you involved.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Paid every time.
Absolutely. Sure. Tell us where you want us to stand.
All right. 3, 1, 2, 3.
Just one? That's amazing. Oh, okay. Wow. She's quick.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Ron. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Judy. Thank you. Okay. Next, we want to celebrate Fire Prevention Month. So I'm going to ask our fire chief to come up, and we want our fire marshal here too. Mr. DeHaven, do you want to come on up? I was just telling them that I was reminded firsthand of the importance of Fire Prevention Month when my smoke detector in my attic bedroom, which is up in the very high corner of the roof or the ceiling, started chirping at me, and I had to figure out a way to climb up there and change the battery, which we are all supposed to do every 6 months when we change our clocks. It's the time to know when to change the battery in our smoke detectors. So this is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Month for October 2014. Whereas the City of Hagerstown, Maryland is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the location where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,700 people in the United States in 2013, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to 369,500 home fires, and whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half, and whereas 3 out of 5 home fire deaths result from fires in properties without working smoke alarms, and in 1/5 of all homes with smoke alarms, none were working, and whereas when smoke alarms should have operated but did not do so, it was usually because batteries were missing, disconnected, or dead. And whereas the Hagerstown Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and education, and whereas the City of Hagerstown residents should install long life smoke alarms in every sleeping room, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And whereas the 2014 Fire Prevention Week theme, Smoke Alarm Saves Lives, Test Yours Every Month, reminds citizens of the importance of installing and maintaining working smoke alarms in the places where we live and work. Now therefore, with the support of the City Council, I, David Geisberts, the Mayor of Hagerstown, Maryland, do hereby proclaim October 2014 as Fire Prevention Month in Hagerstown and urge all citizens to protect their families and homes by heeding the potentially life-saving messages of Fire Prevention Month. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. DeHaven. Anyone want to say anything about Fire Prevention Month?
He just set it off.
Okay. And I do know if you have a question or your smoke detector is not working, if you call HFD, they will come out and check it out for you and help you out if you need that help. So please take advantage of that just by calling the fire department. Sure. All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks. You guys. Okay. October is also Character Counts Month. So I'm going to ask our friends from Character Counts to come up. And Sarah, you're not going to come up too? Yeah. The city of Hagerstown just last year became a Character Counts community. And do you want to talk a little bit about your organization? And you've been around for a while doing this character count stuff, I know.
Is it working? Character Counts Washington County became coalition members in 1999, and that's when we became a part of the National Coalition. And we're pleased that we've been partners with the Board of Education, the Washington County School System. We're part of the Code of Conduct. And it's based on 6 pillars. And if you have any young people in the school system, we're moving the needle because when you talk to them, they recognize those pillars and they can recite them for you. And they're
Trustworthiness,
respect,
responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship.
All right, and our adults know it now too. So, we're really happy that the city has come on board with our efforts and excited about Memorial Park and the things that are happening over there. So we feel that, when you look at the news every day, or read the newspaper, you hear all of the things that are happening in our society that need to be changed. And the root cause is because people either have not thought about character, skills, and what good character is, and how to make good choices. And unfortunately, people are making poor choices. And so we're trying to work it one person at a time. We feel that we can make a difference.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry I didn't introduce you, but you're Carolyn Brooks.
I am.
And
this
with
is
you?
Tom Kine.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
And you're with?
I'm with Big
Brothers. That's
Big
right.
Sisters of Washington County and serve on the coalition.
Excellent. Well,
And
thank you for
Sarah
being
and
here.
Aaron are our city members that are on the coalition also.
Indeed. And the whole idea is to infuse character counts in the culture of whatever organization you're a part of.
Absolutely.
So this is a proclamation for Character Counts Month, the month of October 2014, whereas the next generation will be stewards of our communities, nation, and world in critical times, and the present and future well-being of our society requires an involved, caring citizenry with good character. And whereas the character of the nation is only as strong as the character of its individual citizens, and the public good is advanced when people are taught that good character counts in personal relationships, in the workplace, school, and throughout the community. And whereas Character Counts provides a framework of universal values that transcend cultural, religious, political, and socioeconomic values through the 6 pillars of character, which are trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. I always remember TRRFCC.
That's right.
Whereas these pillars of character can be learned and modeled by the leaders of our community to improve interactions in our society among citizens of all ages, in turn fostering a higher quality of life and enhancing the image of our city. And whereas we count on our partners to help provide strong and constructive guidance for our citizens through character counts in our homes, schools, religious institutions, civic groups, places of business, and community gathering places. And whereas the character and conduct of our youth reflect the character and conduct of society. Therefore, every adult has the responsibility to teach and model the core values, and every social institution has the responsibility to promote the development of good character. Now, therefore, be it resolved, with the support of the City Council, I, David Geisberts, the Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, do hereby proclaim and recognize October 2014 to be Character Counts Month, and urge all city employees to seek out opportunities to incorporate these core principles into their work in parks and recreation activities, childcare programs, community events, and I encourage all citizens, corporate and individual, to model these traits of good character in an ongoing commitment to promote character development and proper behavior throughout our community. So Carolyn, thank you so much for all your work. Tom, thanks so much for being here. And I guess this is, where do you want us to be? Okay.
Perfect. All right. On three. 1, 2, 3.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Last but not least, my friends from the Center of Conflict Resolution Center, Washington County Community Mediation, come on up. October is also Conflict Resolution Month, and this Thursday is Conflict Resolution Day, and the Washington County Community Mediation Center has been around for 12 years now?
A little under 10.
Okay. So I still serve on the board of the Mediation Center, and I'm proud to be affiliated with this organization. And this is a proclamation for Conflict Resolution Day, and I'll have you say a little bit about what's happening this Thursday after that, okay? This is Conflict Resolution Day, October 16, 2014, whereas conflict resolution encompasses mediation, arbitration, conciliation, and other formal and informal responses to conflict. And whereas conflict resolution processes empower individuals, organizations, and families to foster communication and devise solutions that are tailored to their particular needs and interests. And whereas conflict resolution is being taught and practiced in many school systems throughout the country, not only as a way of solving individual disputes, but also as a means toward a more peaceful society. And whereas community-based programs are fairly and equitably resolving neighborhood and community conflicts, thereby strengthening community relationships. And whereas collaborative responses to conflicts are being used by administrative agencies, businesses, and courts to effectively and efficiently resolve disputes. And whereas it is the mission of the Washington County Community Mediation Center to promote the peaceful and creative resolution of disputes. Now, therefore, with the support of the City Council, I, David Geisberts, the Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, do hereby proclaim and recognize October 16, 2014 as Conflict Resolution Day, and encourage all residents to join in recognizing and participating in appropriate ceremonies, activities, and educational programs, and to recognize the significant contributions of peaceful conflict resolvers. This is Izzy Sevko, and what is your official title?
Volunteer coordinator.
Volunteer coordinator, and would you like to say a few words about the work of the Conflict Resolution Center and what's going on this Thursday?
Absolutely. We work in the community and help anyone work out any kinds of problems, whether it's a landlord-tenant dispute, a neighbor dispute, just trying to get a relationship better. We work with the state's attorney's office, the circuit court, and we have a well-known program with the prison reentry mediation that we do. This Thursday at 6 to 8 o'clock at our center, which is at 5 Public Square, the Professional Arts Building, we're having a Conflict Resolution Day reception. We're going to be there talking about what we do. We're going to have light refreshments. And at 7 o'clock, the mayor is going to talk a little bit about conflict resolution and how to make our world a more peaceful place.
Indeed. And I would just like to note that it's the only group out there that's looking for trouble.
Yes.
That's what they say. They're looking for trouble. And what's the other one? You can scream and shout, but you'll help them figure it out.
I like that.
That's
yes,
right.
yes.
So, and would you like to introduce your other two guests here?
Absolutely. This is Sarah Cutler. She's a new AmeriCorps member, and next to her is Nell Barbara, and she too is a new AmeriCorps member. And over here we've got DJ Allen, and he was our program director, and now he is the director of prison reentry mediation, which we have just gotten a state grant to work on and increase the work that we're doing in the prisons.
And just to let folks know, the Washington County Community Mediation Center is affiliated with 17 such centers across the state. There's an umbrella organization called MACRO, the Maryland Association of Conflict Resolution Organizations, which falls under another umbrella organization called Community Mediation Maryland. Much of the funding comes through the Maryland judiciary because, and we know in this community, one of the issues we have are when prisoners get released, at least anecdotally, we think they all end up here in Hagerstown. And the idea is if they have conflicts with somebody back home, that if they can have a mediation before they get released, it may help their chances of getting back into their environment conflict-free and hopefully reduce recidivism ultimately. So it is really good work. It's an all-volunteer organization. When it comes to the mediators, we have very few staff people, as any small nonprofit knows how hard it is to get funding for staffing. So we rely on AmeriCorps members every year and also a hardcore team of volunteer mediators. So I'm very appreciative. I know the city makes a lot of referrals to the mediation center, whether it's neighborhood disputes or other kinds of conflicts. That it's inevitable that we will have conflict in our lives. The question is, how are we going to resolve it? So we're grateful for your service and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Picture time. Thanks.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you
you, David.
Thursday.
Yeah,
You
I
bet.
look forward to it.
See you, DJ. Okay.
We've got a mediation.
Yeah, go mediate. All right. That brings us to the first item on our agenda, which is the Hagerstown Ice Sports Complex Annual Report. If I could, just make a note, because Councilmember Alshire could not be here at the beginning, he asked that we perhaps delay the conversation about the McCleary Hill Phase 1, so we may be rearranging some items in our agenda until then. Turn it over to Rodney Tissue.
Good evening. We all remember that the Hagerstown Ice and Sports Rink is now operated by a board called the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association, HIAAA. They've been doing that for about 6 months, and with me tonight is Paul Sweeney, who is the president of the board. Also, Pete Lowe is another board member, is also here. And I think the board, I would just say, in summary, is doing what I think is a good job of trying to be forward-thinking. I think they are operating with the idea of always trying to keep the ice rink in the black, and I think they've succeeded that. But I think the most important thing is what they're really looking at is trying to improve the customer experience there. So when our citizens go to the ice rink, what kind of experience do they have there? And I think they're looking hard at that, and that'll come out in their report. So their user agreement that we have with them requires them to come in annually and give an update. And so I'll turn it over to Paul, and he has that update for us.
Okay. I'm going to use this PowerPoint. I think everybody has that. But we actually, well, let me go to the first slide. First slide is who uses the Hagerstown Ice and Sports Complex. And you can see up there we have the HAHL, which is the Hagerstown Adult Hockey League, the HESA, which is the Hagerstown Edge Skating Academy, the Hagerstown Bulldogs, which is the Hagerstown Youth Hockey Association, the Washington County North Stars. There's another adult league called the Hagerstown Adult Recreational League, the Mayhem's women's hockey team. They're a travel hockey team. And then we also have a what we call a novice league, or C league. It's for beginner players. Next slide. What is HIAAA? HIAAA is the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association. We are a nonprofit 501c3. We actually formed the group back in January of this year. Give a little bit of props to the mediation group that was just in here, they resolved an issue that we were having at the ice rink equitably, and everybody seems to be happy with that, and that actually resulted in the formation of the HI AAA. So did some very good work. It's a consortium of all the major user groups of the ice rink that you just saw on the slide before that. Each group has a voting member on the board. We also have 3 at-large members. The at-large members were added so that we could get expertise from different aspects. We have a CPA as an at-large member. We have a Washington Capitol liaison as an at-large member, which helps with community, and we're actually looking for a 3rd at-large member at this point. We have somebody that we're going to be talking to, and I think we're going to be adding him. He has some actual electrical expertise, which is one of the things we're looking for right now. So, and again, the group was created back in January, and we formally took over the operation of the rink on April 1st. So really been just a little bit more than 6 months. So we're going to give you an annual report, but it's really based on just a 6-month period. Next slide. This is just giving you an idea of how public skating is working. And we took over again in April, but that's probably the slowest time for the rink. The rink is primarily busy from October through probably March. That's just giving you an idea, past history of public skating, what it looks like, and the numbers are somewhat lower in that slide. Point being is we wanted you to understand that we took over at the down point.
And that's just the public skating.
Just the public skating, but even adult leagues and everything else is waning at that point. Although we were pretty aggressive, we were able to get a pretty high-level college league going. A lot of college kids were home, and we had it was only a 4-team league, but it brought some revenue into the rink during the summertime. It gave those kids a way to play hockey during the summer here in Hagerstown. Yeah. Most of them were going to Frederick in the past, and we actually created a venue for them here in Hagerstown. I'm pointing at the screen. I wanted everybody to get an idea of how many people actually use the rink. I ask people all the time, how many hockey teams do you think are actually in Hagerstown? I mean, most people don't think of Hagerstown as being a popular area for ice sports. I wanted to show you that we have 6 teams in what we call the HAHL, which is the upper level league. We have 6 additional teams in the lower level, which is the recreational league. We have 2 teams in what we call the developmental league, the C League, and we have an all-female travel team. So we have over 150 adult hockey players that use the rink on a regular basis, and we're trying to make it so that they use it year-round. I mean, they use it very heavily from October through April or May, and we have some summer programs that we're expanding on as well. The youth leagues, there are currently six Hagerstown youth hockey teams. They range in age from, the mites are pretty much 8 and under, all the ways up to U18 team that they call midgets. There's squirts, Pee-wees, Bantams. Everybody ever see the Pee-wee or the Mighty Ducks movie, Pee-wee age kids? Those are 11 and 12-year-olds. They're the middle spectrum, and back when that movie came out, there was a pretty high increase of kids that wanted to play hockey. So, but anyway, we also have 2 high school teams. We have a varsity and a JV team through the North Stars, and we have 2 developmental programs. There's a pond hockey program and a learn to play hockey program. Learn to play hockey program is designed for kids that are just want to learn how to play. Have never experienced hockey, may have skated a few times and want to learn about hockey. We have equipment for those kids to use. Doesn't cost them anything for the equipment. We lend it to them, and the pond hockey program is a program that actually we started back in 2007 to just let kids go on the ice and just have fun. There's not really any referees out there, but it's just kind of a way for them to experience playing hockey. Figure skating, there's currently 2 programs. There's something called the Hagerstown Edge Learn to Skate program. That's the program that's been in existence for probably since the rink's been in existence. That teaches kids how to skate. There's different levels. They can progress and become full figure skaters, like you see in the Olympics when we have kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old that do very nice programs. And they're forming actually the Hagerstown Edge Figure Skating Club right now, which is kind of more for the advanced skaters. That is in formation, but we have roughly about 100 figure skaters that use the ice rink as well. So quite a few people are using the rink on a regular basis. When we took over, or actually before we took over, we met almost weekly from January through April to try to figure out what we could do to make the rink more successful. And first thing we did is we completed a detailed analysis of separate rink functions, registration, ice usage, concessions, advertising, maintenance. We kind of identified what was being used well, what wasn't being used well. We've made recommendations at monthly board meetings. Rodney's been at pretty much every board meeting we've had. He can attest to the meetings are planned to last an hour, but very rarely are they over in less than 2 hours. We saw that there really were very few standard operating procedures in place. We've been implementing them slowly. I wish they were all in place, but they're not. They will be. And then we did an assessment of the physical structure of the rink, the boards, the ice itself, and we identified quite a few major repairs that needed to be taken care of, and we actually shut the ice down during the month of June for, was it about three and a half weeks? Yeah. And put the ice back in and did a lot of major repair work during that time. It was pretty much the whole month of June. I think we opened back up, it's like the first week of July. Okay. Just to let you know, financially, all bills are current. We spent over $30,000 during the summertime of our money to do the repair work at the rink. We have a surplus currently in our account, so we're not in the red in any way, shape, or form. We have a budget put together. Everything is looking really good right now. The budget we put together was based on the old numbers. We're very confident that the new numbers are going to make it even more profitable. And the last little bullet point there is we've done all this with really no funds transferred from the old rink account. There was supposed to be money transferred. It hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen at some point, but we just decided several months ago that we were going to move forward whether we got the funds or not. So we've instituted a couple of cost-saving things that we don't really have a large enough spectrum to look at yet, but what I did is since we weren't really open in June, Rodney has been sending us regular updates and reports of usage. And this chart here is showing you water usage, for example. If you look at July, August, and September 2013 in the red, compare it to July, August, and September 2014, we brought the usage down. We've used 90,000 less gallons of water during that time frame. The electric utilities, similar numbers. Both are down a little bit more than 10%.
And some new lighting was installed, right?
New lighting was installed, but there's other things that are contributing to that. The ice is being maintained at a much lower level, so the compressors aren't kicking on quite as often. The ice isn't as thick, so it doesn't require as much compressor time, electric time to keep it frozen.
The optimum thickness for rink ice is between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches. When we had the company come in to do the takeout of the ice, they found in some areas of the ice it was between 4 and 6 inches thick.
Wow.
Which every doubling of the appropriate thickness doubles
The utility
usage of the compressor
use, sure.
in order to get that top layer of
Right.
water to freeze.
Which shortens the life of the compressor.
Yeah.
Sure, it takes more energy,
Sure,
absolutely.
but anyway, it just adds to everything that's not good.
And all this is extra important to us because the city pays the utilities at the rink as part of the arrangement. So we pay that out of our recreation operating budget. So it's important that we try to drive these costs down. I appreciate what they're doing, both electric and water.
Rodney had made it very clear to us that we need to do everything we can to bring the utility usage down. And we have done that. We've shortened the amount of time that the automatic water's on in the bathrooms when you turn on. And just things like that. But we do have one other question. Does the city own any buildings that have solar power?
Not that I know of.
Because we think the short-term loss but the long-term gain If we put solar collectors on the top of that building,
Mhm.
which has a very, very long exposure time to sunlight,
Mhm.
that we think we could reduce the utility use, the electrical usage to very little.
Sure.
And with all the tax incentives that are out there
Mhm.
currently, we would like the city's permission to undertake at least the feasibility of what the cost might be and what the trade-offs are. Because we think we can be the leader in the city moving forward with solar energy, alternative energy.
Sounds like an excellent idea.
I mean, if you've ever seen the roof of that facility, it's totally exposed to the sun,
Mhm.
so. it would-
That's what you need for an ice rink, right?
Well, but that would also help insulate, so there's a dual benefit here.
There was actually, because that comment you just made there is very interesting, when we had the team come in to repair the ice, one of the flaws with the system that we have freezing the ice was directly related to that, because the outside edges of the building are very close to the outside, and in the summertime, heat actually causes that to not freeze as well. So the system that was put in back in '97 actually had a design where it put an extra tube around the outside to freeze the ice, and that prevents that from happening, but it actually created another problem because it almost gets too cold and there's concrete all around it. And this is one of the reasons why the ice needs to come out every 2 years. And it's been going 3 and 4 years, but it really needs to come out every 2 years. If the ground underneath starts to get too cold, it will actually start to heave. And that's what was going on. That's why we had to take the ice out. There were several sections where the concrete was coming up because it was too cold on the outside, and you could see it. It was raised in some areas about that much. So one of the reasons why it cost as much as it did when we took the ice out was we actually had to install a heating system in there temporarily to help get the ground to settle, because the only way the ground would really settle on its own is if we took the ice out for 3 months, and we couldn't do that. So we actually contracted with a company that brought a heating system in, ran it underneath, got everything to settle down, and it did a very, very good job of getting it down. So we're aware of that. The team that we used that came in has actually given us some things that we need to watch out for over the next couple of years, and we're going to make sure everything is taken care of so that this facility is there for a very, very long time. So, okay, the last thing is kind of looking ahead, goals for improvements. The locker room area that was in the back, the Youth Hockey Association started that project. That hasn't been finished. We were kind of hoping that some of the funds they were going to transfer would allow us to finish that up. We've done some things to finish it up. Our plan is to get it done probably within the next 6 months. But it looks much more presentable than it did before. We've got it painted now. We just need to get some electricity back there, an HVAC system, and then some plumbing. And then we'll be ready to go. We're, in addition to helping bring the cost down with less water usage and electricity, we're going to come up with a system we're going to put in place to watch the inside temperature, and not in the ice area, but the regular part of the facility. We want to upgrade the security system. We do, at some point, need to replace the cooling tower. That is part of the, what is it, the capital improvement fund. We're setting aside money for that. We're going to get some bids on that. That'll probably happen within the next 6 months or so. That tower is holding up, but it's not going to be viable for another year or so. I mean, we're going to be happy to get through a year. Our plan is to replace it before that.
Yeah, we pay a percentage of that, and it's in the CIP, so
It's already
when that
budgeted
happens,
for
I'll
that.
be back to have you all review that and hopefully approve the purchase of a new tower.
And we're paying a percentage of that as well. And then I don't have it on the list there, but this Saturday, we're having our rededication ceremony. We're going to have free ice skating starts at 1:30 to 6:30. We're going to have demonstrations. We're going to have some kids out there playing hockey. We're going to have figure skaters. We're going to have skating lessons. We're going to have, I think there's 3 one-hour public skates. It's going to be a fun time. So I think some of the council members are going to be there. We're going to have a little ribbon cutting ceremony to rededicate it. And the plan is also to give Jim Blaylock a certificate of recognition, because Jim, just to give you 2 minutes real quick, Jim was the driving force of why the rink was successful since 2007 to now. He was our general manager. He did everything, never accepted a penny to do anything that he did. He's stepping down now, and his input was, you can't put a price tag on what he did. So.
Very nice.
Any questions about anything? Or?
I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It sounds like the new group has really taken the bull by the horns, if you will, and started out on a pretty solid path. So.
And I want everybody to understand, too, that youth hockey is part of the new group as well. So it's not, there's nobody being excluded. It's all decisions are being made by all the user groups, which is what we really...
And they have new leadership, by the way. And so it makes the coordination of efforts and cooperation much easier and much better.
Mr. Munson.
Thank you for the presentation, as the mayor said, and thank you for the success that we're hearing about. Just one question. When's the next sheet of ice going to be put in?
Well, I'd like it to be tomorrow, but what we want to get our feet under us first. We want to have a year or two to see what we're producing and what we have. Our plan is to set aside funds that we are able to monthly, and if it goes according to plan, we think probably within about 3 years we'll be able to start looking at what it's going to cost for a second sheet and start planning for that. The current sheet of ice that we have right now is a sand base, and that's one of the reasons why it has to come out every couple of years. And there is some major repair work that's going to need to be done with that probably 2 or 3 years down the road. So what we'd like to be able to do is when we do have the second sheet incorporated, we have that up and running, at that point be able to do the repair work on the current sheet of ice, because that's going to take probably 3 months to do when we do that. And we don't want to be in a situation where we don't have ice to offer for that period of time.
I would also tell you the discussions that we have had, very preliminary discussions, I should emphasize, that we have had about a second sheet of ice. The concept that we have in mind would be a concrete-based sheet of ice and make it a multi-purpose. So, for instance, in the summertime, when we're not taking out this other sheet of ice for maintenance, we would take out that sheet of ice so you could have indoor soccer or indoor rollerblade or whatever it is that would make sense. And so it would get year-round usage. Those are the preliminary discussions we've had.
Excellent.
And I just would like to compliment you all. It was many years ago on the council when this came up, and there was a lot of Downing Thomases back then, and we had some rocky roads through the years, and you all have really brought it to fruition now. And thank you for your hard work on this.
Our plan is to see it this way many years from now, so we want to give you a better report next year at this time. So.
Well, and since you brought it up, I want to give a shout out again to the Mediation Center, because this is a great example of the kind of work that they do for free in the community, and it takes a lot to trust the process and to bring all those people together and work through all the issues, but it seems like the evidence shows that it's worked. So thank you all. I thank you all for participating in that process, because it wasn't they that created the resolution for you. It's you guys helping each other come up with that resolution.
They got us talking, so that's what we needed.
Thanks.
Rodney's been at the meetings. I mean, the board meetings seemed, they're all inclusive, weren't they?
Absolutely. Every member.
Keep up the great work.
You've overcome all scheduling difficulties, I presume.
Yeah.
Actually, they really...
sending them to Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had any scheduling.
Yeah, there really haven't been any scheduling issues. The meetings have run very smoothly. When we meet, we're talking about how we're going to get things done. And there's not the backstabbing, there's not, the dragging the feet or people that are that are laying us down, trying to go a different direction. They've been very profitable meetings to move the ring forward.
Great.
Well, thanks for all your efforts.
Yeah, keep
We've
up the
come a
great
long
work.
way.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks
being
for y'all's
patient with us.
confidence in us.
Why don't we move to the unattended donation drop-off boxes? Ms. Marr, our planning director, is going to be joining us for this one.
When is Mr. Ashar expected to attend? Because this is a huge issue for him as well.
It is, but he related to me that he is satisfied with either of these options, as long as something is done about these unattended donation drop-off boxes.
And we're here this afternoon to see which route you would like to go. We see there's two possibilities to deal with the concerns about unattended donation containers, which in some cases attract unsolicited drop-offs, and stuff starts to accumulate, pile up, it starts to resemble trash. People complain. So there's a couple of options to go. One option, which is what the town of Myersville does, and Councilman Alshar forwarded that to us. They prohibit unattended donation containers. Another option, if you don't want to go to that degree, would be to just have it be part of either the sanitation code or the property maintenance code, that once things start to accumulate, they would be cited as any other kind of accumulation of trash. In this case, it's abandoned donated items. And so I guess that's the question for us. Do you want to ban them outright, or have us address it as if they become out of hand, we cite them for a code violation? But they can have them, they just have to keep them well maintained and not accumulating.
And how long does it take for us to get to the point that it's out of hand, and when does it get done?
You've had
You know, I
one
mean, it's like
recently,
mowing
right?
grass, okay? The grass is tall, we're gonna wait a foot, then we call, and then we're gonna send a notice out. So what are we talking here?
We can do whatever time frame seems appropriate. The Chapter 185 gives us 24 hours as the shortest time frame for things, or we can go up to 7 days.
Well, I would, I guess I'll break the ice. I would go for item one, number one, which is treating it when they become a nuisance, in effect. I would add something for inappropriate location. You know, you should have a right if they put it too near an access point, or where it's too visible, you know, so that, I don't know, inappropriate location. Maybe you could think of a better definition, but I think that can be an annoyance as well. But I would like to try number one before we go to number two. See how that works. That would be my preference. But I would add some language about, you know, we can request it to be moved if it impedes traffic or pedestrian access, any number of things like that.
I guess that brings up a good point. There could be a third alternative as well, that these donation containers would need to go through at least a staff-approved site plan for the location of where they're occurring. I mean, we do that with dumpsters. We don't do that with these bins that just appear.
Again, I would like to hold off on the bureaucratic options to see how we can make them work. Because, I don't know, I drive around, I think they're a form of recycling, in effect. And many of them, to me, aren't in the way. I keep looking at the one at County Market, and when I go there, it's not trashy, but I've heard it is at times. And various other centers, I haven't seen a lot of stuff myself, but I do respect people saying that there are, you know, when I can't get there. So, again, I would like to try number one with some kind of provision for inappropriate location.
Kathy, do we also know who it is that owns the drop-off? Before it used to be called Planet Aid, and now it's just drop-off. Do we know who actually puts these out?
I do not. Do you have any idea?
I think there's different ones. I don't think they're all.
Well, I mean, but again, how are we going to contact them?
You don't know who they are.
Right, you don't know who they are.
Well, I would hold it's on the shopping center's property. If it's on our property, yeah, and I would hold the shopping center owners liable myself.
We would hold the owner of the
with
property.
the owner of the
Oh,
property.
okay, that ought to make
Allowing
them
the
real
bin to be
happy.
there.
Well, I mean, it's their,
Marty, I don't have a problem with it, okay? Maintain it. Here's
So-
another issue.
So you're good for number 1 then, Penny? Is that?
Oh, I could eliminate all of them, but whatever.
I'm not good for number one there. I'm good
Okay.
for number two and only number two.
Okay.
The first place, and I'll talk about that a little bit. First place, Paul is over busy now. He doesn't need any more responsibility in terms of keeping places clean. Secondly, I've had too many complaints about too many of these things since I've been in office, a very short time, I might add. And third, there's enough offices in town, enough sites in town where people can actually go without going very much distant at all, to drop off stuff. We don't really need these boxes around. These boxes tend to become dump sites. Somebody drops a couch beside them, and then everybody else that's looking for a dump site does the same sort of thing. I think number two is the way to go, and let's get rid of them once and for all. That's just my feeling.
There's also no evidence really that these actually go to any kind of charitable organization. I mean, people drop stuff off there, but it could go to some textile recycler who's going to end up making money off of them. And there's no real way of knowing that what you're dropping off in that box is actually going to some kind of charitable use.
Well, again, the property that it's on, whoever owns the property should have something there, and we've not approached that yet. But before we get anywhere, this morning, while getting a flu shot, I was given these pictures, and I know this for a fact, and it's up at the Goodwill, and it's actually right along Burhans Boulevard, that when there is no one that is there, this is what we get to see. And then they start going through this anywhere from after 9 o'clock until 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. I really am surprised that it has not ended up on Burhans Boulevard. So that's another one that when you're doing, and John was sent this today, because that's a problem. And again, when you're looking at this is even larger than what's around the boxes.
And that's an example of one that's during business hours is attended.
Business hours attended, but this is after
Right.
hours. So somebody needs to do something there as well.
And
And
this,
again, the people just assume they can come and they can just go ahead and drop off. So again, it is educating. Please put that one on your list.
So I have 2 that would be for an outright ban, 1 for amending chapter 200.
I doesn't matter. I don't,
Penny-
look, as long as they are maintained, I don't have a problem. But let's get to where we need to get, because we really don't know. I mean, we don't know who it is that has them. The the property that it's on, they've not been talked to yet. So we've dropped stuff off at these places. But I've not had, a county market has been the worst.
In the county market, do we know how many of these drop-off boxes there are in town?
Do not have an actual count or
There's a
location.
lot, Lou.
And just out of curiosity, the county market box, who is that for? Do we know?
I think there are 3 boxes that are out there, and I do not know each one that they
There's only
have.
one left now. You took care of one of them, thank you.
yeah, I've only seen one most of the
Yeah,
time.
there was,
that's
were
what I'm
two,
saying,
but
we
there's
don't
one.
know.
My inclination is for option number 2. There are so many. What I agree with Councilmember Munson is that as far as clothing, blankets, things that are in half decent shape that can be used, we have, whether it's the W House or a sundry number of places in this community that can use those things.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is see the newsletter, for instance, from the W House, to see the amount of people who make contributions that drop them off instead of throwing things in boxes that are unattended, that none of us have any clue where they go to. I will say this, I would be more than happy to reconsider my thought process if the people who are the beneficiaries of these unattended bins, after they disappear, start showing up here explaining to us all the good that they do, what they're used for, who they are. But I see those things more of a dump site than I see as anything else. And looking at, one of the finer organizations that we have being Goodwill with the attended sites, that happens, there's got to be a thought process of how they're dealt with also, because that's unacceptable.
Yep.
That's unacceptable, and we need to deal with that. But I would go for option number 2. I agree with Penny. By the time we start solving the problem, it's so far past the problem that I don't see where having them outweighs the bad that's created.
The only thing that I can tell you, and I was told this morning, I know that a lot of the Goodwill, for example, is struggling. They're not getting enough of items that are coming in. So I think, too, we need to see who it is that does take items. Children in need, I said that the other week. We're looking from 0 clear up to 21 years old, all right? And when you're looking at these organizations, Trinity Lutheran is another one, I believe, that takes donations. So we really need to know exactly what is happening with the boxes and who really does own them, because there are so many that do take in secondhand clothing or whatever. I don't know, I guess it's just the convenience of being able to drop off whenever you think you need to drop off and not do it during daytime
I
hours.
said it encourages recycling because I think there are people that either don't know, we all know those places, most of us in public affairs, but there's people don't know about them, whereas when they're going to the market, they say, oh yeah, I can take something to that box. I agree, I don't know the answers to the questions about the ownership and where they go. But they must serve a useful function or people wouldn't be doing it. I mean, they must go somewhere and provide some utility somewhere, and they must be recycled or reused or they wouldn't be out there.
Well, we need to find out.
Well,
Because there really isn't anything indicating it other than drop off.
Well, but why would people do it unless there's, value added? So I think there's probably an extra increment.
Why would people be going around with shopping carts, gathering up aluminum and going up here to the metal place, okay?
Because they
And that's
recycle
not-
them, and they
they're
pick up
getting
the
money, the
garbage.
ones that are doing that.
Right.
Now, so I want to make sure that whatever's happening with these, that it is legit.
May I ask a question? We have a quasi-expert at the table who hasn't said anything, but did you all have any negative feedback, or how long, and when was this passed?
Well, and it goes back before the town of Myersville. Actually, this was first passed by the town of Middletown, who borrowed it from some other jurisdiction, because in Middletown, if you're familiar with one, in Middletown, there's a Subway right on the corner.
Right.
And so the yellow company,
Planet 8
or whatever, put the box there, and it got overused. And really, there's several of these larger entities out there who come up from the more urban areas to the east to pick them up every so often. Unlike the Goodwill, which may set a box at various governmental locations that is attended, like let's say Goodwill put one here at the City Hall, that would be attended. You'd only be able to get to it during those times. And it is a local organization that you have a contact name and number for. You know who's putting it there. You know when they pick it up. If you have any issue, you can contact them. The issue we were finding in those two jurisdictions was that you didn't have a contact name and number. You didn't know where the stuff was coming or going to. You didn't know the process for collection or times lack thereof. They made a very limited effort, because let's face it, it's a driver coming up. He's picking the stuff up. He doesn't want to go around the stuff not in the box any more than you do to pick up a box full of wet clothing or wet household goods. And most of the stuff, I think we generally realized after some research, was of more of an international purpose, where these types of products are exchanged on a broader scale. and not for the charitable causes that I think some people believe them to be. And it just made more sense to say, look, you know, let's get rid of the unattended part because it's doing nobody any good. And we actually have a Goodwill box now in the town hall, you know, and that gets picked up once a week and gets pretty
So I'm
fine.
assuming you're in favor of Plan B?
I'm completely in favor of
You
Plan
got
B.
4 votes.
I support the ban. I think there's no reason that there should be a proliferation of these. I think they're a nuisance more than they are a help, and we don't know even if they are a help because we don't know what the impact is.
And I think that there are experts within the community that we can take some better understanding from. If you noticed, the Salvation Army on the Frederick Street a couple of years ago didn't have a fence around the parking lot. It now does, in part because it was receiving donations during non-attended hours, like the pictures you show here, and they got tired of it. I mean, you know, they don't want a couch with a broken arm any more than the person that dropped it off that didn't want to take it to the landfill.
Right. That's
And I think, you know, you get to that level of abuse. You know, Goodwill has signs saying, you know, don't drop off. You go to the Salvation Army on, I forget what street it is, behind the Domino's, and they'll clearly tell you, staff will tell you when you go there, you know, hours are from X to X, and we don't accept any donations outside of those hours because they want to be able to bring it inside of their enclosed area and sort it the way it's properly, you know, accepted. They don't want that stuff sitting outside because it's of no use to anybody.
So staff will work on some language, and we'll come back and we'll get this on the regular agenda.
But I want to know how you're going to address the Goodwill.
Well, I think they might need a gate across the, I think the only way to stop people is putting a gate across. You can't drive your car in. You can drive your car in there anytime after dark and just dump stuff out there.
Yeah.
Clarify
Sure.
what they're going to work on.
So I think they're going to need a chain or something like that. Or
The prohibition.
Okay.
Amending Chapter 185, nuisance abatement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our friends from the Housing Authority are here. Welcome. Sorry for the delay. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you for having us. It's going to take a second for David to set us up.
That's good. Sure.
How are you, Chris?
Congratulations, by the way, Mr. Schenkel. I understand your retirement has been publicly announced. And
Yes, sir, in 83 days.
There you go. But who's counting, right?
83 and a half or
83. I think it's down to 82 now.
4
Let's see.
hours.
Dave, let me get these things, I'll pass them out. You can tell me what quasi-governments, we have lots of paper for you.
Sure. So we're here to talk about the McCleary Hill project, Phase 1. We received a letter from the Department of Housing and Community Development requesting public comment. So that is the purpose of our meeting here tonight, to publicly discuss this project and to provide feedback to the Housing Authority. This is the same one I have. Do you want one for the record?
Chris, did you get a copy of this?
I think this is the same. Did you get it? You got one? Thank you. Oh, it looks like it's up. Are there any significant changes to the one that you can't? Okay, I'll save you an extra copy.
First, I'd like to introduce David Kump. David is our Director of Special Projects, and he will be handling the lion's share of this when I retire. What you have in front of you is the this is the submittal that we made to the state for the overall project in the first phase. And if you look through there, you'll see a lot of the information that's provided, or that we provided to the state. The posters, basically what we're talking about is taking down Nolan Village. No.
It would help if you use that microphone.
Oh, would it? Okay. I wasn't going to stand up, but I will.
On the bottom,
So we're on.
if you switch it on.
Nolan Village, if, yeah, it's not on?
It's not on.
On the bottom.
It's mainly, especially for the viewing audience at home, they have a
Here comes technical assistance.
We need it for broadcast.
Okay. Yeah, it's good? Okay. What we're proposing to do is take down Nolan Village, and one of the reasons is it was built in 1969. It was a turnkey operation. It's always been, from a construction standpoint, it's just an albatross. It's a core urban design. The architecture it stands in stark contrast to the surrounding neighborhood. It has no adequate or it's not adequate for modern families. It's inefficient to maintain. It has no air conditioning, no handicap accessible. Most units have bathrooms only on the second floor. There has no one-bedroom units, which is probably the main thing that that we rent, and it has no adequate storage. If you've ever been out there, you see these little storage huts in the back of the buildings. They're just it's just people have no place to put things. One of the reasons why we decided to try to undertake this project is that we're looking at about $7.5 million worth of rehab that's required in the next 10 years, and another $12.5 million that we'll have to spend in the next 20 years, and all you're doing is putting lipstick on a pig, and that's what we don't want to do. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. We also have a high concentration of large family households out there. We have 882 individuals living on 22 acres. We always try to look at the comprehensive plan that the city has when we do our work. And one of the goals of the comprehensive plan for the city is to improve the conditions of Hagerstown's challenged neighborhoods. And as I think everybody knows, Nolan Village is a challenged neighborhood. What we want to do is we want to blend new residential development into the fabric of the existing neighborhoods through complementary design and interconnectivity. And it's something like what we did at Gateway Crossing is basically what we're looking at here. I think one of the things I need to back up and tell you a little bit about is that what you have in front of you. You've got the plan. You've got a copy of this. We're here a little bit prematurely. We normally would have gone to the community and talk to the community about it, and we would normally go to the surrounding community and talk to them. When we did our Hope 6, we had those preliminary discussions. The reason why we're here earlier and pretty much putting the cart before the horse, or the horse before the whatever, is that funding at the state level is very high. It's higher than we've ever seen. And if we're going to do this project, there is no federal money for this kind of project right now, and state funding is at all-time high. And we were encouraged by the secretary to go ahead and do this now because he thought, Secretary Skinner, when Secretary Skinner was there, because he thought this would be a perfect project for the kind of funds that were set aside. So, but the problem was we had a short period of time to put our application together, and so we got the application in, and now we're trying to do our work as far as letting the community know what's going on. As you know, we did meet with the mayor and the city administrator and John Estishin a few weeks ago before we did turn in the application, or a couple months ago. But with the letter coming from the state to you, it was my understanding that you all wanted us to come and explain a little bit about this today. So that just kind of gives you a background on why we're here. I'm going to turn this over to David, and David's going to explain to you what we're proposing to do.
Thank you.
Well, and as we know with the Hope 6 project, Gateway Crossing, one of the things that's been so successful there, the driving force, is the diversity. So within the community, say you have a duplex, you'll have a market rate beside of a subsidized unit, beside of a homeowner unit. Things like that provide a very good diversity where a tenant on one side of a duplex where they're receiving subsidy and have a very low rent cannot complain to the person beside of them saying how rough life is when they're paying market rate. And thus they can't complain to the homeowner because they've been successful also. We've seen a very high rate of people moving out of subsidized housing into market rate and from market rate into home ownership, whether it be there or outside of the city. Some of you may or may not know that the Housing Authority was able to purchase the land beside of Nolan Village, 33 acres, which is beside of the 26 acres that we have. The idea behind it, well, mainly we were able to buy it with defederalized dollars, which opens up a world of possibilities for us for development. We do not have the restrictions that HUD normally will place upon a property if you purchase it with operating funds. So the big scheme is total redevelopment, 250 subsidized units replaced with 325 units. 75 of the 250 would be market rate. Now, if we focus in on phase one, which is what this
250 or 325?
325 will replace the 250.
75.
75 will be market rate. So 250 subsidized units will be recycled.
When you use the term market rate, what you mean is it will be completely market rate.
Yes, not tax credit, not subsidized, market rate.
And that's the benefit of buying that property with defederalized dollars. We don't have the restrictions.
So there will be zero target income levels for that.
Correct, because, for example, phase one, 86 units. Of them, 77 would be subsidized, 9 would be market rate.
And would
9
those be
market-
property taxable?
Yes.
They would be, yes.
Yes.
So you're talking, just on our preliminary numbers, around $850 a month for a two-bedroom, which would exceed any tax credit allowable amount, so, yes. And with the phase one being built on a vacant piece of land using about 15 acres, 14.81 acres, that allows for the relocation of a few courts in pre-existing Nolan for those to move into that part. And instead of having what we experienced with the Hope 6 project, which was en masse relocation, 210 people being relocated, this would be a more systematic, terms being rolling rehab, rolling redevelopment, so that you don't have the disruption to the community. Within phase one, you would have most of your information for the big scheme, and phase one would be, I think it's on 2.1 and 2.2 within there.
Yes.
So when you're looking at phase one in particular, you're talking, there's a pre-existing stormwater area that's been drained, but what we would really like to do is to create some sort of water feature there. That would be the kickoff to the development, and again with the homes surrounding there. As the community expands, still even the architecture of the streets focus in on feeding into that area. As development goes on, although again this is for phase one development, as development goes on, most of you are aware, Boys and Girls Club has already put up a new recreational center. I think grand opening is October 25th. They have actually started with the redevelopment that's going on in there. Phase two development that would happen would be linking on to that area, roundabouts, new community center, providing Head Start, new amenities, and you'll see in some of the renderings what we'd like to do is more of a community town center, something with a clock tower, things like that. The architecture of the buildings, unlike most traditional housing where you have a townhouse and then one window on the end or just siding on the end, which is visually unappealing in most cases, we've tried to mix it up so that even the ends of the unit will have 2 or 1 bedroom units, so that there's features at the end of most of the townhomes and duplexes. So
Let me just, one thing I want to make real crystal clear is that there will be no relocation. The relocation will be, we'll build in the phase of the property that we bought. We'll build the first phase there. We'll move people in courts 1 and 2 into that phase, take that court down, and just progress through that way. So it's the biggest headache with Hope 6 was relocation, and there's concern that you dump people back into the city. That won't happen here. So, I'm sorry, David.
And for those of you that do appreciate Gateway Crossing, what we tried to do when we put this together is one of the big successes of Gateway Crossing was our developer at that time, Glenn Morgan, who is now owner of Delaware Valley Development Company. So we've brought him on board. And within the architectural realm, we brought Dave Stemble, which he's just moved to Grimm & Parker, so we'll be bringing them on board. And so we're trying to bring the best of those worlds into the picture so that, because they're very clear on what our vision is. We have a construction company that has had high success in redevelopment, and Stoltzfus is the name, and we plan on, again, if we receive funding, bring them into the picture. So we have very high hopes, and like Ted said, you got the letter, and at this time, what we were really looking for was some support on that. Did you want?
Sure. Let's just add a few more things. We see this as benefit to the city. For one thing, just to get rid of the name Nolan Village, the stigma of Nolan Village is a biggie, I think. And I think the people that live there will enjoy the new name of McCleary Hill. And just in case you're wondering how we came up with the name McCleary Hill, is that Dick McCleary has been a board commissioner for over 10 years, was very instrumental in helping us with the Hope 6, and George Hill is another board member, commissioner member that's been on the board for about 10 years, and so we named it McCleary Hill. Anyway, we look at this, and I think the $700,000 in taxes is low. That's a bad figure. I think we're looking at least $700,000 in additional taxes for those 75 units over 20 years. But the 250 units will probably be taxed as a tax credit more so than a pilot, I think. It's the way we did with Gateway Crossing. But these are details we got to work out. The additional 18 acres that we're not using, the 33 acres we bought, we're looking at possible commercial use there. We hope to make some money by selling those in some way that you'll be comfortable with, that will help us pay for the project. They say, even though I have a little difficulty with the statistic, they say for every $1,000 every 1,000 low-income housing tax credit units you build, it creates 1,130 jobs. There's no question that this will help the economy. We're talking about this is probably a $70 million project that's going to be taking place over the next 4 to 6 years. So there's a benefit to the economy there. There'll be new water service, new sewer service, new gas service, and upgrade the electrical, and of course we'll donate the major infrastructure improvements to the city. So it'll remove the blight and the beautification. Let's talk about what happens if we do nothing. Nolan Village will continue to deteriorate and be a financial drain on the housing authority, which would affect our ability to manage the portfolio. The potential for neighborhood decline social and economic problems, and we know we have social and economic problems in Nolan Village now. Right now, it's no one wants to live there, and we have a hard time renting there. We do, because we have a wait list of about 2,500 when it comes to our public housing and 4,000 when it comes to our Section 8. People will live there, but that's not the place of their choice. So I mean, if we do nothing, Nolan Village continues to look like this. What I love is, you see the famous drainage system that we have in Nolan Village? So it's time.
One thing, when we met earlier in the summer, that upon reflection, I guess, was a concern, is I understand you're going to be rolling, as new units are built, you'll move folks from the existing units into those, and then those will be demolished. But I think you mentioned that at some point you may stop taking applications. So in other words, you'll sort of turn off the tap of the inflow.
Well, that's what we did. That's what we did when we did Westview Homes.
Okay.
But
so that's not the plan for this project.
That's not the plan here, and I think I gave you the wrong impression there, and I apologize.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about that, because that would certainly have an impact then on the ability of folks who are in that long waiting list that you said to be able to get the housing they need.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question about the land you purchased, and you said you purchased it without federal funds. I'm not sure, where did those funds come from? Where do those funds come from?
We make funds like that by services that we provide to the LLCs. Gateway Crossing we do not own. C.W. Brooks we do not own. Those are LLCs. So whatever services we provide to them, we get paid, and that's money that the Housing Authority gets to keep. That's not federal money. Money that we receive from antennas. We have antennas on our buildings. There's anything that we do that is not part of our regular operations that federal government is not defederalized money.
The land on 1.2 here in your handout, the extra land that you purchased, seems to me that was zoned, and I'm just doing this from memory, light industrial. Was it not a continuation of Sweeney Drive?
And I think it was zone residential.
Was it zone residential?
Yes,
Was that the subdivision?
Yeah, that was good. There
was a subdivision in there that didn't go to, I couldn't recall, I should have, I didn't have time to check on it.
It was,
So Sweeney Drive is cul-de-sac at that area and not going in there. Is that it? Or where was the access for the townhouses? Going to be Sweeney Drive.
The access will be Sweeney Drive, yes. That's my understanding.
But that's where you're talking about maybe light industrial, because there's light industrial on Sweeney Drive?
Possibility. We'd
like to see that.
Okay,
instead of more subsidized housing.
However we can make money to help pay for this project, that's how we want to do it. But to answer your question, there was I forget the name of the company, but there was a company that was going to put 150 townhouses,
Right.
and we had worked out where they were going to do improvements to Nolan Village and put a medium strip down Nolan Drive and all kinds of things, but they went belly up in 2007 or 2008.
Right, they were a victim of the collapse.
Yes.
And I think, isn't the topography a little awkward in that area? Am I remembering it right?
Yes, but we've had the builder look at it, and he doesn't seem to have a problem with it.
For phase one?
Well, for what we plan on doing.
Or for light industrial?
Well,
I think maybe that was the issue with it. That was made residential because the sites weren't level or even enough for townhomes. I mean, for light industrial.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that.
Do you?
I've driven through there. I haven't.
You don't have that
He doesn't
impression? Okay.
We can find out.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
schedule a field trip.
Kathy knows.
Kathy. Yeah.
When Linwood Hollow was planned,
Linwood Hollow.
people were filling in on any land they could get their hands on. It was the boom. And Linwood Hollow got caught. They were at the very end.
Right.
So it wasn't really people were willing to build on land of any kind of shape.
But we
or
didn't have
form
it,
back
I
then.
couldn't recall. Was there a topo issue in that?
No,
Okay.
people were going to push it around.
Okay. All right.
We got a heck of a deal on that land. We got it for $450,000. It was appraised at $2.4 million.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see Sweeney Drive and you guys do a buffer with that so we don't have too many units in one place, because that's,
Oh, no. We want, I mean, that's the whole, one of the reasons for purchasing that is to spread it out and not have that concentration like it is right now.
When you use the term barrack-style housing in your plan, can you describe the difference between what I'm looking at 1.3, which is existing conditions, and what is proposed?
What is proposed?
Yeah, these two pictures.
Take a look at the pictures.
I'm looking at 2.1.
Yeah, but if you look here, let's see. If you look at 2.0, I think you can see the difference.
So it really is more of a style, a form.
It's more of a style, and they're not
Over-functional.
connected. I mean, one of the things about Nolan Village is it's courts. There's no, and parking in the front. This is to have the parking in the rear, like most modern complexes are. And of course, the architecture is a lot different. You know, we'll have, the porches will be up off the ground. They won't be on the ground. It'll be a lot more aesthetically pleasing.
In the email that we received, and this gets to my question about, you know, what is truly market rate, you know, what you plan to sell as truly market rate, it had a breakdown of your actual application to the state. Do you have that document here today?
No, I don't.
Okay. The reason I ask is because within that document, it identified those specific income guidelines associated with this proposed development, some in the 30% range, some in the 40% of you know, the average
That's the tax credit
household
programs.
income. Does that proposal specifically and only apply to the existing 250 units to be replaced, or do those conditions apply to the additional 75 units that will be up for sale?
No, that only applies to the 250 existing.
are this, I'm sorry, Chris.
And are the 250 units that are up for reconstruction, they will be strictly prohibited or restricted to rental? Is that correct?
Yes. They'll all be rental, all 325 units. We can't afford to build and sell.
75 will also be rental.
So the
Yes.
75 will also be rental?
Yes, yes.
They're not going to be for sale?
No.
So that's a difference between this project and the Gateway
Yeah.
Crossing.
Are they going to be, don't want to interrupt your flow, but are they going to be scattered, or are they going to be concentrated, the 75?
Oh, they'll be scattered. In fact, in the first phase, there are only nine in the first
They'll be
phase.
scattered. So you think you'll get people willing to pay a market rent in a subsidized housing
Yes.
arena?
Yes, I really do.
Well, the idea is that it won't look like a project.
No.
Well, I
Right?
understand, but still,
Gateway Crossing currently has rentals that are approximately 700, and
Yeah.
that's tax credit.
And Gateway Crossing has a wait list of over 2,000 on itself. So there's lots of people that want quality housing, quality affordable housing.
And that waiting list, I'm assuming, is for those units that are at a market rate rental level for Gateway?
No, they're all tax credits at Gateway Crossing. So they're different income levels.
But these 75, as part of this expansion of Nolan Village, won't be part of that?
Yeah, that's correct, because we were able to do it with defederalized funds when we bought that property.
But they're still going to be rental?
Yes, that's correct.
but you guys will be paying full property tax, not a pilot on those.
That's correct.
And,
Well, the LLC will.
well, okay.
Yeah.
The pilot, when you guys met earlier, did any discussions of pilot come up?
I don't think so. I don't believe.
Because
I mean,
that's another issue with subsidized housing. You know, we provide fire, police, and the whole gamut.
And we provide a lot of social services and also security, and you talk about where people dump things on our property, and we have to pick it up and take it. So it's I understand that the service level is higher in the public housing than what you get for taxes, but then again, that's part of the deal that was made 65 years ago.
Well, but pilots can help offset that if they're,
Yes, yes.
pilots can help offset that, and there are all over the country, pretty good working between certain housing. There's examples of good pilot arrangements.
Sure.
That help go some towards the public service.
Yeah. Many of the cities support the housing authority by providing funds across the country too.
Yeah.
We've never asked for anything from the city except for help when it comes to development.
But that brings the point up. I'm sorry, Kristen, if I'm interrupting, but I'm on a roll here. What are are you requesting any subsidies from the city towards this development?
We'll probably be coming in and requesting forgiveness on building permits and things like that, but no subsidy.
Well, that's a subsidy. I mean, that's a subsidy.
Well,
Look at our revenues. Our revenues are way down, so that's a subsidy.
I understand. We're trying to provide a service to the low-income folks in the city.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
I do appreciate the cooperation of the Housing Authority in our trail project to connect downtown to City Park. There's a lot of excitement about that trail, and hopefully good things can come of that.
Sure.
So we do appreciate that.
The only one thing that we want to do is be a good partner to the city. We want to be an asset to the city, not an albatross around your neck in any way. That's what we try.
And just to clarify, in terms of timing, we reserve some time on your work session next week if you want to take some more time, because you're getting a lot of information today. If you want to reserve your final comment or direction to us in terms of the comment to DHCD until after the second conversation.
I guess I'm curious how that works, because if I recall the Gateway crossing process, there was a significant degree of community outreach and input and ability for discourse and comment and discussion. And if I'm not mistaken, is what being asked for here is that we issue some letter in one direction or another, absent that community input?
No, I'm not asking for anything. The letter just said if you had any comment you had 45 days to comment on it.
Right. A letter from the state.
That's from the letter from the state.
And when is that 45 days up?
It's from the date of the letter, which was September 30th.
Oh, okay.
Well, and that doesn't mean we're not going to come and ask for something down the road, but right now, this is as far as we've come. We have a lot more to do.
And you haven't taken this concept to the Planning Commission, have you?
No.
I would recommend going in for at least a concept conference.
Sure.
If you're not ready to go in for subdivision, go in and talk about it. That way you get preliminary things and you don't get whacked when you get to the subdivision process.
Yeah.
When you're locked in. I would do that.
Yeah, Marty, we would normally do that. It's just that, in fact, we did not plan to come to the city council until January when we found out if we get funding or not. And then we were going to come with specifics, but because the letter was received, and if the city council wants to comment on it, we were asked to come here and just explain where we are right now.
Well, and I think that if we're being asked to comment to DHCD within 45 days, as a city, we need to make those comments. That we've had no public discussion
I think they're
on this,
specifically looking
it hasn't went
for
to the Planning Commission and those types of things, so that they understand
the context in
where we're
which we're
at
making comment.
in
I think they're
process.
only looking for comment on the financing and a summary of the project. So not necessarily all the technicalities of the whole planning process, but just the fact that they're going after federal low-income housing tax credit program, multifamily housing revenue bond, and or other programs of the DHCD. So I think they're looking for comment on just a general sense of, is this something the city would support under these types of financing mechanisms?
As you probably know, it's a competitive application, and we compete with the rest of the state with a number of different projects. It's a point system. Even if the city did not approve this, that this would still have a chance of being approved. I mean, even though we would never go forward if the city didn't want to do it. It's not required. But to get the 10 extra points that we need to really have a good chance at this, we do need the city to be positive about it. So as I said, I apologize because we've come in here without being able to go to the community and things like that. We have talked to the resident advisory board member who is a Nolan representative, and he knows fully what's going on. I think the Nolan people have known that this is coming for a long time. Their only concern is, will they have to move? And they're not going to have to move.
Well,
so I mean, that's
there's
been
but there's a broader community
I understand.
around Nolan Village that I think deserves that level of input
Sure.
Into this process before we send a letter off from the city saying, we love this thing, it's great, we hope it gets through the state process. I mean, I think that has to occur. I think that we have to accentuate the fact that, that our planning commission or respective bodies haven't seen the information, haven't had the opportunity to make comment on it as we would with any development that would require that type of approval process.
That's completely up to you, but I think if we do that, we won't get the funding, and I'm pretty certain that the funding won't be there as much next year.
Well, and I have to tell you that very frankly that I'm not certain that I'm excited about continuing to compete with other places in the state for an increase in the
Is Myersville or Middletown putting an application in?
subsidized housing.
Are we competing with you?
I don't
in
think
any
we're
way?
competing with anybody that I'm aware of.
Well, we're competing with a lot of places in the state.
But that doesn't change the fact that as a council member, I'm not overly excited at the opportunity of the extension of additional subsidized housing. I'm not.
I understand.
Well, what you're telling
has their
us
opinion.
is it's the same amount of subsidized housing. That's
Same-
what I'm
same
hearing.
amount, same amount.
It's 250 units, and your proposal was 250 units.
That's
So-
correct.
But I hear that you're changing the mix to have more, well, I don't know if you had one, but bedroom sizes.
True.
Instead of so many 3 bedrooms.
Correct.
Which is something we desire. If you feel you can market that,
Well, we know we
I think
can market
that's a
it.
good-
We have such a wait
But
list.
fewer, the mix with smaller, or smaller number of bedrooms at least, right?
Yes. We've already had a marketing study done, and the marketing study shows that the demand is definitely there.
So do you think that accommodates your existing population at Nolan Village? I mean, considering that there are all those 3 bedrooms, in other words, there's an oversupply right now of that.
Yes.
So
We
you
have people
won't be
overhoused right
forcing
now.
out people because they won't fit into one of those units, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
Well, There won't be people sent into Hagerstown hunting for units.
No.
Okay, well, I'm just,
No.
want to hear that.
No, those are good points.
Well, I do think it would be wise to take a week and review this information, communicate any questions you have to the Housing Authority to try to get clarity, and we'll keep it on our agenda for next week for further discussion.
I
And
can just comment very briefly, Mayor. I just want to make sure that we all understand something. This is not an issue of whether we continue public housing in the Nolan Village area or we get rid of it. It's a question of whether we continue to have a failed community there or whether we change it. There were people who were against Hope.
Yep.
I don't know how you could have driven down Ross Street and thought that that was more positive than anything else. And quite candidly, I can't imagine how we would not support this. This is not an increase in public housing. That's a whole argument whether that would be a positive thing or a negative thing. But that argument isn't in front of us. The question is, do we continue in that neighborhood with what's there, or do we have the same type of sea change that we had from Ross Street to what's in the west end of Hagerstown now? And I personally can't.
There's a huge difference between those two. You're changing the unit type, number one, which means you are going to expand it somewhere else. And number two, there was a percentage of that that became market rate for sale in the broader stretch of that development community.
There were 62
there were
homes out of
complete-
300.
Complete differences.
Any
Well,
other
we have
comments?
found, to be quite honest with you, we've had more problems with the homeowners maintaining than we have our rentals, so, you know, it has its pluses and minuses. I'm sorry.
Really, over there?
Yeah.
I've walked that. It seems to be generally pretty good, the alleys and stuff.
I don't see anything better in the city. I mean, I'm just saying.
Well, I don't know about that.
A rental complex? Tell me another rental complex that looks as good as Gateway Crossing. I'm just, you know, I'm retiring.
I just want to say that I think Lou is absolutely right. You look at that picture, you look at what could possibly be.
Gateway Crossing is
It's a
over 10
no-brainer.
years old now. It's over 10 years old. And you go up there, it still looks new. And what you had there before, remember that old trailer park that was on Elgin Boulevard, that was across from the community center? That's what you had, that and industrial stuff.
I grew up on Concord Street. I know what it looked like.
Any other comments or questions? So we'll keep it on our agenda for next week.
Okay.
You're welcome to come back if you would like. We'll probably just continue to discuss it here at the table and determine.
If you think it would help, we'll come back.
Okay, we'll chat about it a little more. And
Yeah, you'll be down to 75 by then.
Yes, I will.
But, no, I think it'd be useful if you could, and that we can wrap up and get, you know,
We'll be back.
decide on a good letter.
We'll be back. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, David.
Very much.
Next item on our agenda is the Bloom-Carlile Trust.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle.
I'm here this evening to talk about our Bloom-Carlile Trust Fund. This trust fund, just to give you some background on this, we were given money, and it was to be, these funds are to be distributed to the needy of Hagerstown.
And this goes way back, right?
It does, yes. Total in this fund, we have about $122,000. Of that $122,000, as of June 30, the Community Action Council has a balance of $8,212. The Community Action Council has been our partner and has been administering this Bloom-Carlile Trust Fund for us since 1983. And what has, typically this partnership, what happens is Community Action Council has an application process. They go through, there's several criteria. Actually, I think there's 2 separate applications for this. And this money is used to pay for first month's rent. It's used to help people cover utility costs, and that does include electricity. And it also helps cover in the event of court eviction. So we at the City of Hagerstown partner with them, and they administer this for us on our behalf. It's only for the City of Hagerstown residents. And right now the eligibility there is that they have to be a resident for a year. So we give money on a monthly basis. In the last 4 years, it's been $4,800 on an annual basis, but that's $400 a month. So we give $400 a month to the Community Action Council, and they oversee and administer and disperse those funds. Then they report back to us so that we know the balance that they have. We know how much that they have spent and what it's been spent towards. In the past year and a half, 2 years, there's been some transitions. We haven't actually been receiving all the necessary reporting that we need. And with all the changes that were in place and uncertainty, I did not include in our fiscal year 15 budget any continuation of those funds to the Community Action Council to be dispersed out. So since the time that we've adopted our budget, we have new staffing in place and we're getting reports. And there is still a need. As of, and again, I'll just cover this again, as of June 30, there was $8,212 still at the Community Action Council. As of today, I believe that number was down to about 6,093. And the reason that I'm here tonight is just to get your authorization and permission. I'd like to go ahead and reinstate the allocation and give the Community Action Council $4,800 for fiscal year 15. And I propose that we would continue to do that $400 a month. But I just wanted to come this evening and.
Can you explain the $8,212 is where?
So.
That's at the Community Action
Yeah,
Council?
so at the Community Action Council, and we have
Okay.
members and representation here with us this evening, which is great. But they have an account, and they deposit this money, and then they track separately the Bloom-Carlile Trust Fund from the City of Hagerstown versus all their other funds. So they have a balance. It's like another checkbook, but instead of me writing the checks, it's the Community Action Council on our behalf writing those checks.
Is the $122,766, is that in some
Total.
kind of an endowment or something?
Yes, it
So
is.
it's interest bearing and,
Yes,
What
very,
was it?
very low interest
What
bearing.
was the original bequest? You know?
I'd have to go back and look at that.
Well,
Should have had that with me. I have the
We're
numbers.
gradually eating up principal, given the current
Given
rate of
the,
return.
Right.
and what it had, previously, we were only giving the amount that we were earning in interest. And then there was the market crisis in fiscal year 10. So not only do we have higher unemployment, a lot of other revenue streams, a lot of other grants drying up. At the same time, our interest that we're making on this was drying. Maybe.
who decides how the money's invested? Is it, I mean, it's in a trust, but who controls the
It's-
trust?
It's just in an account and it's just getting normal interest.
See, I'm wondering, and this is totally off the topic and it's off the top of my head, but I guess the community foundation, I mean, this is what they do, right? I mean, they take your money and invest it, and they can judge the riskiness of the investment or whatever, but I mean, they, I think, increased their fund by like 22% or something last year. I mean, they may, so I just think that might be a better way to build the fund so that it's not, like Marty was suggesting, it seems like it's dwindling, and then that seems like not a very good stewardship of the trust, I guess.
And I would have to go back and look at the original documents to make sure that there wasn't language there that just didn't stipulate that we couldn't do any
Right.
market.
But
I
it
mean,
sounds
it's-
kind of silly for us to stick it in a checking account or a savings account that makes 0.1% interest a year when there, could be invested.
But it all depends on the language.
Well, sure, and obviously we would have to
Again,
do our homework
there's
on that.
stipulations. It's just like with a church.
I understand.
Those who bequeath to a church.
It's just a question. It's just a question I have about,
And we can clarify that.
Right.
How
I'll pull documents.
and I'm sorry I didn't get in touch with you ahead of time with that question. It's just
fine.
something that
Also, I tried.
occurred to me.
This one I would have asked you before.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Michelle.
That's okay.
But it does seem like that's a pretty small amount to be every year taking $4,800 out. It doesn't seem to me like you'd be making that much in interest every year.
Right now, we're not
Well,
Yeah.
under $100
Right.
a year.
Okay.
Look into investing, but I'd rather give it to CAC than the Community Foundation, so maybe we can.
Well, no, I'm saying-
incorporate it into their.
I'm
fund
saying
for role.
the investment would go to
Yeah, I
the community
understand. I just
foundation. The actual
I just want to make
proceeds.
that clear, if they're
Sure.
willing to have us chip in to make their pot a little bigger, and
Right.
we get a bigger return.
Right.
But I still like the idea of letting them do the determinations,
Sure.
not us.
I agree with you. I think that's necessary, Mike.
Letting, the CAC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is, we feel like we're back on track with CAC. The 4,800 is reasonable, consistent with prior history. That's our recommendation, if
Right.
the
Right.
council's comfortable.
Any
And I
objections?
have sat through that. I've been on CAC's board for quite a number of years. And there were some ups and downs. We have now that it's kind of evened out.
Would you
so-
like to introduce the folks that are here with us tonight?
Sure. We have Carl Burr, our new, and I'm sorry for the title.
Executive
Actually, why don't you-
Director.
why-
He's the
why don't you-
executive
He's
director.
the new Dave Jordan.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
If you want to put it
And
that
if
way.
you would like to
And
introduce
this
your
is Keith
case.
Godwin. Keith is as a counselor, a key staff person with the organization, so.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Munson.
just want to make another comment related to something else before you leave. I want to thank you for taking care of the situation up on West Side Avenue, that weed situation. It was god-awful. I had many complaints about it from people who live there, and I'm sure the rest of the council did too. And we appreciate it being taken care of, and hopefully it will continue to be taken care of in the future. And we thank you for that.
Thank you.
So it sounds like no objections to the continuation of the $4,800?
I think it's fine, but
No, but I think we
Michelle
need
has
to
some
look into
homework
you,
then.
to your idea.
I can do that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Workers' comp. Next item on the agenda. Welcome.
Welcome. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce Kevin DeHaven. I think most of you know Kevin. He handles our workers' comp and liability and safety programs here with the city. But we're here to follow up on our prior discussion on moving to a self-insured workers' compensation program. The last discussion that we had, Ed Seward from CBIZ was here, and Mayor and Council indicated a willingness at least to further consider moving to a self-insured workers' comp program. And to briefly recap, CBIZ was projecting a year one savings of just over $288,000 and a 5-year overall savings of over $1.9 million, and that's across all funds. So similar to our self-insured health insurance program, this is a transition and a program that will require significant oversight and management. For all the reasons outlined in the packet memo, this program will not work without additional staffing support in HR. So the savings from moving to the self-insured program gives us the opportunity to fund the position. Now, in the packet memo, I have kind of a comprehensive, conservative estimate on the cost of the position, but base salary, just the base salary range, we're looking in the $50,000 range, just to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, I think it needs to be clear that this is not an $87,000 salary.
Correct. That's considering full family benefits.
And the memo's clear, but
For those reading it or interpreting
For those reading it
it.
at home, it's a 50,000 range, right, plus or minus?
Right, yes. And the position would have a very diverse range of responsibilities and includes workforce development, training, succession planning, assisting in recruitment and labor relations issues. It would also absorb enough of the safety training certification functions from Kevin so he can focus on the oversight of the self-funded program. So I'm excited for the savings and the opportunities that the program presents, and I appreciate Mayor and Council's consideration to the request. So if you are favorable, we'd like to come back and put together the formal approval motion for the 28th for the transition to the self-insured program with a target date of July 1 of 2015, and the addition of an additional staff person in human resources, which, due to the diverse range of responsibilities and obviously the learning curve that it would take for someone to get on board, we are a complex organization, we would like to hire them to start sometime the beginning of next year, of 2015.
Any comments, questions?
And you haven't lowballed that salary range. I mean, 50 is
It's
not
in
much
within
for
the
skill,
50,000
But I would,
range.
yeah, because with your 87 there and you subtract money for a computer, it looks like you'd be a little bit higher than that. If you
It
count 30%
could. We don't
for
like to give out an
benefits.
exact number. We like to
Yeah,
have a
yeah, but-
range.
So 50 would be like a mid-range,
Mid-50s,
would be a mid-range.
yes. Or that would be beginning, starting range.
Starting range.
Yes.
The starting range, okay. Okay,
So you're good, Mr. Brubaker?
I'm good.
Mr. Munson, Mr. Metzner says yes, Mr. Alshire, everybody's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll have it on the preliminary agenda next week and then for formal vote on the 28th.
We're very appreciative of that. And I think I should just say that the net general fund savings is $112,000 because all of our funds will benefit from the savings for workers' comp. So we've got a very nice significant savings in the general fund that will help on that 3-year schedule we've been working on since last spring.
All right.
Thank you for your hard work on this.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Ever slightly getting back on track in terms of timing. The last item is the competitive negotiated sale recommendation for 1923 West Antietam Street.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So staff is bringing tonight an application through the competitive negotiated sale process. In the memo, I gave some background on the competitive negotiated sale process itself, and then also in some background on 19 to 23 West Antietam Street, which is the subject property tonight. In summary, we have a proposal for transfer of the property to a developer that would complement a development plan that he has. But it accomplishes some goals here. This building must come down before winter. As we know, this building suffered a fire at the top floor, had to remove it. It's very susceptible to damage, especially with any kind of snow load coming this winter. The plan outlined here limits our liability. Without a plan, our exposure is about $150,000 for the demolition of this building. If we're able to move forward with this plan, then we're looking at a maximum exposure of $75,000 together with this developer. But also what's important here is that this application for the competitive negotiated sale process supports the community city center plan. It's right along the trail project. One of the heads of the trail would come out right by this building on Antietam Street, and it supports the mayor and council's vision for the downtown. So with that, I'd like to see if there are any questions, or John, if you'd like to talk about how.
Well, I'd like to add on the source of funding for this. We have funds in our economic redevelopment budget, fiscal 15, for unit reduction. We currently do not have a unit reduction project. And while this project was not originally envisioned to use the unit reduction funds, it is available. And should we have a project for unit reduction, we would work to identify other funding sources for that. I know when we had initially talked about this concept of working with the developer, we were at a lower dollar amount. We were thinking our contribution would be in the $45,000 range, but we also thought the demolition would be slightly more than $100,000. We have verified that it's Bowman Development has communicated with two companies, and the bids are right about $150,000. So their costs have gone up. They asked for our share to go up. The value of the property when the buildings are down will probably be about $30,000. Now, in terms of a overall development plan for this area, the developer is working on some concepts for future development in that area, as well as this particular site would be utilized for a staging area should the Board of Ed move forward with their hub, their classroom hub in the downtown. So from a staff perspective, the committee met and believes this is worthy of consideration by the mayor and council. And should you direct us, we would work with our legal staff to put together the requisite agreements to both convey the property as well as work out a licensing agreement to allow work to begin prior to settlement.
Mr. Munson.
I just want to say, good piece of work. I think this gives us an opportunity to begin the process of changing a very blighted street. And this is a good first step. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, feedback? Any objections to the plan? Everybody's okay with it? As much as it sucks to have to spend money to demolish a building that we didn't own to begin with,
If somebody else out there has a better plan.
Yeah.
We've had this advertised for a while, so this is.
Do we have any estimate on the demolition cost, ballpark?
The ballpark prices, I saw one of the written proposals, and that one was 145 plus incidentals, so we're right at 150.
So
And
we're right at 75.
Yeah, but we're capped at 75 with this
Well, I
agreement.
understand that,
Yes.
but, yeah.
And the next steps, did you say you would like a special session to approve
Well,
something? To get
we have
this
a
going?
9 o'clock meeting tomorrow with Mr. Boyer to hammer out the legal agreements, and if they could have this worked out for next week, we would like to add it to a special session next week so we can get this ball rolling.
Sounds good.
Just to clarify too, we're kind of modeling this after 140 South Potomac. If you remember, we took on that building,
Yes, sir.
had an agreement with the purchaser, but also allowed them to begin work before the closing to help with their schedule. In that
Yes.
case, it was a renovation. In this case, it's demolition.
It's been done before.
Yes, sir.
All right, sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Thank you all for your
Thank you very
support.
much.
I know a lot of people in the neighborhood will be excited to have that building come down as well. All right, city administrators' comments.
None for me this evening.
And who on the council would like to start with comments? Mr. Brubaker.
I know we have a volunteer week and we talk about it, but at the beginning of the meeting especially, the number of people that came in that were working on various boards and various efforts, various organizations, from major things like the hockey rink, and they're not here tonight, but the Maryland Theater is run almost all by volunteers. It's managed by volunteers. One of our assets in this community is the number of people that step forward and in the end do a successful job, from these major organizations to hundreds of smaller ones, providing all kinds of help, pro bono professional assistance, just sheer effort. So again, I want to thank all our boards and commissions are all volunteers, and east of us it's different. It's different. Even the elected officials are paid much more than here. It turns out to be a volunteer effort. Yep. So it's virtually a volunteer effort at our level. So the number of public-minded people is just one of the real assets of our community.
Thanks. Mr. Alshire?
I have two items. The first is I had the opportunity to participate with city staff for the United Way Day of Caring. We did some painting and cleanup work, the Western Maryland Hospital. I was actually surprised. I'd never really been back in the back area for long enough
See
to
their new
see.
fitness trail?
It's nice back there.
Long enough to see how how large it is back in there.
Yeah.
But after taking about 20 loads of brush on the truck back to the back, you get an idea of how big it is. So I think it was a good thing, and I think that between us and Citibank, of course, which confused me because I was a little late and I showed up and I'm standing there with Citi thinking it was the city, but it was Citibank. So, but I found my way eventually. And it reminded me of Lynn Hendershot, who I used to sit beside here, that while you're out there doing it, you're not out there for the folks that you're doing it with, or even for the folks that utilize the facility now. I think you're doing it more so to show the folks that come afterward that this is what you're doing and this is how you maintain it into the future. So I think that was probably one of the visions that Lynn was able to bring to the table, and so it reminded me of him. The second is I was walking the other evening, and actually I saw the mayor. I don't even know what evening that was, but I thought
Coming back from the Big Dipper.
Yeah, I did see that. He didn't even offer me any ice cream. No, he was driving.
Oh,
So,
he was driving.
I figured I'd walk up, to a bit into the northeast where, I've heard comments here at the table and from residents of some of the issues they're having. And I passed a gentleman who was sitting at the Pocket Park at Locust and, what is that, east, north? Yeah, east. And he was screaming into the phone. He was sitting there drinking a beer, screaming into the phone how he was going to stab somebody in the chest. And then 2 days later I read about it, and so I just had this, huge curiosity. I'm reading that and I'm remembering that passing by. But there were, I would say that in that area more so than the other, that I've certainly had the opportunity to walk around in the evening. That there is a different feel about it.
Welcome to my world.
And it does need some redress. And
Yeah.
I think, Lou, your comments about lighting speak volumes in those sort of 3 streets in that area, those 6-block area, that you don't have the same feeling even on, East Antietam and Baltimore and some of the areas up Franklin and Walnut. So that area is definitely dark in the evening.
So you still have the dog, huh?
For now.
Still hasn't
That's still up in the air. Right now it's 3 to 4
As long as you keep
in
walking
favor
it,
of them, and I just need one more. So.
Mr. Munson.
I'd like to compliment our chief of police and the sheriff again for their good work in apprehending the individuals who robbed sheet stores and various other stores around the community. That was extraordinarily good piece of work on behalf of law enforcement. One of those individuals who was actually participating in the robbery was a convicted killer. He was given 40 years sentence, was out after 7 years for whatever reason. I have no idea why, but that's a travesty on somebody's part. And it would have been easy for him to be a killer again at one of those sheet stores. And the sheriff's department and our chief of police and our entire police staff did a great job of taking those people down. And I'm going to get into some of this in weeks ahead a little bit, but Kristen and I sit on the Economic Development Commission, and we just got a new executive director. And I just want to say that the lady, Cassie Lewis, seems to be working out incredibly well at this point. I've met with her a couple of times, discussed things of interest to the community with her, listened to her ideas. She's full of energy, she's full of ideas. And I just wanted to compliment her on the job she's doing so far. There's a long way to go, I understand that. But to see good things happening over there after a kind of long hiatus is really very good for this community. Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to piggyback on what you said about the good work of the Hagerstown Police Department and the sheriffs. And when I met with the chief, I believe it was just last week, to go over general issues of crime and some suggestions on how we can get the word out about the wins that HPD has, because we put out press releases about when bad things happen, but we don't put out enough good news about all the wins that we have. But he brought up a very good point, which is that the police are doing their job. They're catching these criminals, and they're going to these court commissioners who then let them right back out on the streets, or set ridiculously low bonds so that it basically gets them out on the street even faster. So it begs the question, who are these court commissioners? I couldn't name one of them. What accountability is there for them? And I think this is a conversation as a community we need to have, because I get the emails, I'm sure everybody else does, about crime and what's going on in Hagerstown. And the fact of the matter is the police are doing their job. It's the other parts of the machinery of justice that are letting us down.
Mayor, if I may respond to that, I think you're absolutely right. There was an incident, and Penny knows a lot about this, involving 1163 Hamilton Boulevard. And the man who was perpetrating the bad incidents, in some cases outright crimes, went before the court commissioners, I think on 5?
Yeah, but he also went before one of the judges that was a judge from not here, and that's when...
5 or 6 different occasions.
Yeah.
And they just turned around and put him right back out on the street so he could continue doing the bad things that he was doing. I think that kind of a conversation, Mayor, is the way to go.
Well, and it ultimately comes down to even what the chief judge of the state of Maryland constitutes a danger to the community.
Right.
And whether burglary, breaking and entering constitutes a danger to the community, apparently is open to interpretation. And some people down around Annapolis and Baltimore, Washington don't think that it does, but guarantee you if your house is broken into, you're going to think that that's a danger to your community. So I do think it's worthy of a
If you're a neighbor,
more public conversation.
If you're a neighbor, and to a house that's broken into.
I do believe our police department, the sheriffs, they do a great job of catching these people. It's the other parts of the machinery of justice that are letting us down.
And no one has ever questioned it. It has never come
I couldn't,
before.
like I said, who are the court commissioners?
No one has
How do
ever
they
come
operate?
to this table to even, and there has been just so many complaints on how many are arrested and then how quickly they seem to even get back out. And that's not only court commissioners, okay? You're looking also at judges that are also part of the problem. And I'm sorry, but I have to say it. Of course, I always stick my foot in my mouth anyway, but I'm saying it.
Well, there
It's
has to be
true.
accountability
You
for that
know,
part of
and
the
the accountability
government
should
as
be
well.
there, right? But it is not. So, and that would be good to go after.
Ms. Nye.
Okay, the hoedown. I was only there to get the beginning of it open, and I know that there were people that were still strolling in. I don't know what the rest of the day held, but I hope that it was good. I don't know how long you were over there.
Not for too long after
yeah.
the start either. The weather got better, though.
Because it has always been a really good turnout. Kirsten, you didn't have the kids over there either, did you? Okay, you didn't go. All right. And of course, everybody has gone. The parking lot that the Department of Social Services use from us, that they pay for
On
us.
Church Street.
Please tell me what kind of whatever we have that we did to that parking lot. Because it certainly wasn't macadam. It was something that looks...
The tar and chip.
Yes, it was whatever, and it looks ungodly horrible, and I just want to know how long is it going to last.
Okay, let me
Okay?
check and I'll get you
When
some
I saw this, I
information.
thought, oh my, somebody's gone and thrown dirt over this.
Is
Okay?
this what they've done on Forest Street also?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we through pavement preservation, we've started to use, in some cases, what's called slurry seal. I don't know if we did on the parking lot. I'll have to check.
I think that that's what it is. I think that's what it was called. Somebody
Slurry
had told
seal.
me.
It's like a coating.
Oh, but
It's not new asphalt.
Well,
it's
but
slurry seal.
I just want to know the amount of time that it is supposed to last
Yep.
and how much it has cost us, in fact, to do that. Also, while getting the flu shot today, we were standing there and we were talking, and it came up, and we were talking about shingles. Okay, as in
disease or the ones on the
shingles,
roof?
the disease. Okay, flu shot. Connect now, medical. All right. From what I'm being told,
That comes from the
is
chicken
that
pox, right?
correct? But, and I didn't know this because I don't have the insurance through the city, okay? But I'm being told that you have to be 60 years old in order for the insurance to cover this shot. And
The vaccine.
yes, and I don't know why, again, that would be a Karen thing, but I'm throwing it out to you because I know that there are those that can be much younger to get this. And as a matter of fact, 5 years ago, I ended up with shingles. There was quite a few of them that ended up with it and were only in their 40s. I'd like to know why we cannot get this through the insurance, that they can be covered, because it certainly is infectious. And if there's more, that does come down with it. But it's just a question that I needed to throw out. Also, the Alexandra House, John, are we on top of everything that's happening there as far as, is it being maintained? I'm not getting downtown either to see if everybody's in when they're supposed to be in, but I need feedback on what is also happening there.
I'll check with staff.
Okay, yeah. I know that I've talked to you before because there has been some language problem that's been on the outside of that, and that again is something to look at. Because if, people are not doing what they should be doing, then management certainly is not doing what they need to be doing. And last is Marty. Marty, of course, we get the Nancy Allen thing, but I've been following Cortland and the apartments and knowing that the last time they were actually denied as far as going any further in putting any more apartments up. And all of a sudden, they are Johnny right back on the spot, and they're going to be coming, and
I'm aware of it,
it's going to
Penny.
be, I know you're aware of it, and you're sitting on the commission, but what I don't understand, because I talked to Doug Wright, how is it that they have gotten on the agenda that quickly after it has only been what the period of time of, and now they're turning things around?
It was a concept plan. It wasn't a formal plan that was denied. So they're proposing to come back with changes to that concept plan. In other words, it wasn't a formal proposal, as I understand it. I wasn't there at that particular meeting, but I just talked to several people about it today. I'm very well aware of it.
Oh, I know you're
what's
aware of
going
it, and
on.
I know you sat there, okay?
Yeah.
And I know that I've been following it, but I really am very concerned about it.
Sure.
Because
A number of us are.
The developer that is doing this is one that I am not happy with. And I just think that, okay, what is it now that we're going to end up having to do again to try to keep everything held at bay? And I really am. There's going to be more than just myself, as well as you and others, that are going to be concerned with this whole spread out again of Cortland. Also, Bruce, this is a, whoever's going into the alleys. I know when Don had brought it up over there on Cypress and back of Gordon's. There's an alley at Buena Vista in East Place. It has 2 hills. Those 2 hills basically have got huge taken out of it. They're just, it's horrible.
Potholes?
The alley, worse than that. I mean, they actually are like
You said it's
worse than
Buena Vista and East?
Right, and East Place. And I know that I had gotten phone calls before about alleys that were up in that inn, and I know that our resources are not that great, but please, can somebody look at this? The neighbors are complaining about it, and
it's an
these
alley.
alleys are being used more and more. Yeah. That's it.
All right, Mr. Metzner.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, but some things came up that caused me to do so, to answer some questions. One, our district court system is an entity unto itself. It basically answers to no one except the chief judge in Annapolis. It is a statistical base-driven animal. I attended Friday as a member of the private defense bar and also representing the city of Hagerstown. I'm a member of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Commission in Washington County, which is the best conceivable committee that you could ever see. It's made up of circuit court judges, district court clerks, parole and probation, the health department, chief of police, sheriff, NTF. Every player in the criminal justice system is there, and the one system that is an entity unto itself is the district court system. That is where the district court commissioners, how they are appointed. None of them are lawyers, by the way. None of them are trained in the law. They set these bonds pursuant to what they're told to do from higher up. And more, the county, our county, we suffer a lot from probably the least funded county in the state of Maryland as it relates to mental health assistance. There are so many things that are poor with that. Let me say, on the other hand, our health department has 24/7, you need help, you go there. There is no waiting list at all. And to get everybody up to date, in the first 6 months of this year, there were 21 overdose deaths in the city of, not in the city, in Washington County, January through July. But if we wanted to address something that directly affects us as a city and our budget, and we tried it a long time ago, and it's very difficult, because quite candidly, my opinion is one of the biggest impediments we have is the state's attorney's office in this community. But that's for what it's worth. We had so many arrests this weekend over the holiday that bond reviews lasted from 12:30 to 2 o'clock today. That's how many people had to have bond reviews. During that time period, we had at least 6 city police officers sitting in the hallway. Not one of those police officers, notwithstanding there was a state's attorney there who was responsible for the docket when it started, because you have a attorney there for bond reviews. Court starts at 1. So you have a state's attorney there at 1 o'clock who does not get called until 2:15. I think Don was there today with us. I have 6 city police officers. At 2:15, they haven't even talked to a state's attorney. They don't even know if they're going to be needed today. One of those officers got off work at 6 a.m. this morning, had to go back to work at 6 p.m. this evening, and at 2:15, a state's attorney hadn't even discussed with him. I was able to release Frank Toston when I found out I had the only case he had. Otherwise, he would have been there from 10 to 1 until 2:30. Our officers and attorneys are told to be in court at 1 o'clock. Court almost never starts before 1:45, but our officers are expected to be there. If you go to district court, and again, there's Don over there who's going to nod his head when he tells you, when I tell you that 80% of every case in the district court, the first time it's called is continued. Because people arrive, they don't have a lawyer, they get an automatic continuance. Okay? But our police officers are going to be there. And I believe that it would be I'm not proposing this, but I think it's so bad that I think it would be cost effective to hire a staff member who did nothing but coordinate with the state's attorney's office to find out whether our police officers that were paying overtime's one end of it. But when you have an officer get off work at 6 a.m. in the morning, be told to be court at 1 in the afternoon, and I ask those officers to please let us know whether any or all of them were needed to be there today. Because when I left court at 2:20 and I asked them, not one of them had a clue whether they needed to be there today. Now, the fact that they didn't know whether they needed to be there today meant that whoever is prosecuting the case never talked to them. Which means, well, I can tell you, you have prosecutors who don't even look at their cases until they walk in the courtroom. We have prosecutors, I have seen it twice now, who have tried jury trials, who made an opening statement that said, you all saw that I was just handed the case today, so I don't know anything about it. You and I will learn together. Okay? So, you're right when you say the police do their job. And it is a very frustrating thing for those of us in this business to watch what happens. And I will, with all due respect, defend our judges. Okay, I believe the judges in this community are doing an outstanding job, and if you think they're easy on people, just go east of here and find out what it's like. The guy got 40 years, got out in 7. Believe me, whatever judges would have convicted him would have never trumped that. The rule was on violent crimes, you do 50% before you're even eligible for parole. And I heard that gentleman's bond review. I think he had 2 manslaughter convictions, not 1. His record was this long, and I don't think you'll find it was mainly from Washington County. But when we talk about this criminal justice system, we do have very limited power over it, but the one power we have is to try to help our police officers with not sitting on a hard bench for 3 hours in the morning or the afternoon to be told they're not needed. It just doesn't make any sense, and it happens every single day. And I challenge anybody, go down to district court and tell me whether or not somewhere between 60 and 80% of every case every day, at least with first appearances, first time people are there, get continued. It makes more sense to me to not even have those police officers there, but that's my rant for the evening.
Well, I appreciate you illuminating the issues that go on inside the court for those of us who are not familiar with it. It is the machinery of justice, after all. I just wanted to review, there was a lot of stuff going on last week. The food bank had an open house, which was really nice. It was great to see all the good work they do. It's amazing to me how much food gets thrown out just for some silly reason, like huge boxes of apples bigger than this table and someone will look at 2 or 3 of them and they're not good, get rid of the whole box. Or a forklift accidentally scrapes a pallet full of yogurts and knocks open a couple yogurt containers, the whole pallet gets thrown out. So fortunately, the food bank is able to take some of that food and give it to people who need it. Right after that, we came down to the Maryland Theater for the unveiling of the historic placard, which was really special. A great presentation. The folks from Fort McHenry came and brought their 10-minute video and a huge replica of the flag that flew at Fort McHenry. And that was really nice. So we're glad to celebrate. And I learned something new all the time about this great town that we live in. And I did not know that the first musical rendition of the Star Spangled Banner was printed right here in Hagerstown. So that was pretty cool. The hoedown was great. And want to thank staff, Karen and her crew, and also the Parks and Rec folks for putting all that together. And of course, all the sponsors and donors. Tomorrow at 4:30 at HCC at the Technological Innovation Center, there'll be a Fort Detrick Alliance Western Maryland Tech Showcase, which I'll be going to. I think the congressman will be there, and that should be very interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Thursday, of course, is Conflict Resolution Day at 6 o'clock over in Professional Arts Building on the 2nd floor. Everyone's welcome to come to that. And then, of course, Wind Down is this Friday. There's a pumpkin carving contest, which apparently I'll be participating in. I better sharpen my knives and start figuring out a pattern besides the regular old jack-o'-lantern that I know how to do. I saw that there was an event with the Discovery Station, and I certainly don't think anything I carve will be as creative as what I saw coming out of those folks, but hopefully we'll have another good crowd, and the weather will be good, and it'll be a good night for everybody. With that, we will be adjourned. Thanks.